the non-Swedish listeners, this is a communist bear.
You need to have the human behavior when you're building stuff. The product thinking is going to be even more important now that there are more and more products out there built by AI.
But I would argue that your investment in Grail, who do plant or cellulose-based alternatives to plastics, is usually my turf.
I want to invest in your cool deep tech, and now you have fun.
Every Thursday, I get fed up and threaten to exercise my free will. Guess what day it is? Hi, I'm Mala. Welcome to Thursday VC, where we lean into conversations that make us happy and make us think. And I think you'll get both of that with my next guest. Meet Samira Zaringhalam, angel investor, product lead, and author. Her investment lens is one of the most unique that I've come across. It's rooted in impact, mental health, longevity, and she has an instinct for knowing what people really need, not just what they say they want. Today, we're going to get into all of that, building products, backing founders, but really the harder stuff too. What we're building, why we're building it, and frankly, who we're building it for. Hi, Samira. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
So happy to be here and talk to you about this. I've been waiting for this conversation for years.
Oh, have you?
There's no small irony and definitely some humor in this first question. But you worked at Acast, which was a podcasting platform. And here we are recording a podcast. So what did you learn about how people actually consume content that surprised you during your time there?
I think before entering Acast, I had no idea how popular it was. I mean, of course, I'd listened to podcasts myself, but the beauty in what I saw when I started was that anyone could launch a podcast. Anyone had the possibility of sharing what they wanted. And it was just amazing to see how big that world was. So that really surprised me. And eventually, when video as well started mixing together with audio, it was just amazing to see that you didn't need a lot of money or technical things to be able to spread your word.
Democratized creativity.
Yes.
And you have a soft spot for stories.
I do.
You do. You moved into something that I think is very different. The insurance industry is, frankly, I think one of the most resistant to change in many ways. And you were there with Insurello. What did building a product at Insurello teach you about how technology can actually break through? We talk about disruptive, but like really not just knocking on the door, but getting them to open it with something that is so new and something that touches so many people's lives.
Good question. I think what has been my thing in life is that my path has never been linear. Like I've often heard that you seem to have lived many lives because I tend to have a lot of passions and jumping around in different areas as well as in the product area. So before the insurance, I had never worked with insurance before. I knew nothing about it. Like if you would have asked me about insurance before, I had no idea. So starting to work within product in insurance was completely new to me, but it was a fun experience because it was very traditional. You had to fight against the big companies in Sweden, and as well as there was not a lot of tech in that time. But it was both fun and completely madly crazy.
But there is something, again, about both giving yourself permission to enter a space that in some ways was very different and alien to you, and you leaned into that, and I think that's fascinating. I think your comment on living many different lives is probably why we're friends. There's something joyful about not limiting yourself to a certain ant trail, I think. But if we talk about the most under-discussed topic, AI, no one's talking about it. So I'd like to be the first podcast to touch upon this theme
in 2026.
in 2026. But AI is changing both products, but also how we build them.
Yeah.
You've stepped away from the product world, but how has it changed your work? And if you go back and build a product team, would it change the way you'd build that team today?
Yeah, so just to take it back a notch, I've been away from the product world about a year now, and I think we're going to get into a bit why, but I started writing a book. But in that time, a year ago, it was slowly making its way into the product world as well. Me and other colleagues in the product area started using it, of course, but it wasn't that usual as like it is today. I think now where we are is that AI has lowered the barrier of creating stuff, which makes it even more important to focus on the product because everyone can build a product more or less, but not everyone can create the best solutions. You need to have the human behavior when you're building stuff. So I think that's like the product thinking is going to be even more important now that there are more and more products out there with by AI.
What's product thinking?
Human behavior, not creating like the ideal behavior that you think, but actually solving a problem for the user and translating a problem into a real solution that is going to be adapted into the everyday.
So it's not just volume
No,
and shipping.
exactly.
It has to resonate. You know, it's interesting the way you described how product is changing with AI reminds me of what you started with in terms of Acast democratizing podcasts. And I can't say that having more podcasts has been better quality podcasts. So I see the parallels there as well.
Yeah, I mean, the market grows when it's easier to get into the market, right? So you have to really differ from the rest.
But given that you've been at the helm of podcasting products, insurance, and categories that are very different from each other.
Dogs.
Dogs. How did I forget the dogs?
It's amazing. I've been in like so many different things.
So exactly this. What do you think that having the breadth of these diverse experiences gave you that having depth in a single one perhaps couldn't?
I think it doesn't really matter what the company does. In the end, it's all about human behavior, as I mentioned. It's all about, as a product person, being in the intersection of all different areas. Like you need to talk to stakeholders, to business, to the finance team. And so the key here is to be able to translate what success looks like. So you need to be data driven, you need to have an outcome, but also being able to switch your language into different types of groups in the business. So having worked with different types of course, one company can be more data driven, and I've learned a lot from Acast. They were very data driven, which was awesome. And then at Dog Buddy, I learned something else. But in the end, it was the same human behavior that we tried to solve something for.
I think it's an elegant reminder that at the day's end, it's not the what as much as the who.
No, yeah.
Speaking of languages and bridging worlds and depth, decades ago, your family moved to Sweden. You very much have been going from wanting to study French to telling me how to build the best products in the world. Tell me a little bit about that leap from being an operator to the world of investing. What do you see that you think these career investors who've been here 40 years, what do they miss that you catch?
Well, first of all, thank you. I've always beaten myself for not being this expert because back in the days, I was told like you're good at many things, but you're not like an expert on this. And I always thought like, okay, maybe that I should have been better at something or like pursued one path. But now I actually see the way that I am as a strength because I have a lot of passions and interests and I'm good at different things, but maybe not like an expert on one thing. And I use that as a part of my investment strategy, I would say, because I don't look at, how do I say this without sounding, oh
No, go lean in. Let's go.
um, I don't just see a pitch deck and think, wow, this is going to succeed. I know the struggle. I know the inside of building a company, even though I wasn't really like, I've never been a founder or a CEO and I never will. It's not my thing. But I've been on both sides and I know what it takes for a founder. I live with a founder. I'm not going to say like I always know when a company is going to succeed. Like that would be guessing. That's not realistic. But I think, or I know I'm able to now see the obstacles and the risks, which is also why like I would love to invest in deep tech. It sounds so freaking cool, but I don't know about it. Sorry. I want to feel that I can see risks and that I can see what to look for. It's possible that I can learn. You never know.
So, no, let me challenge you here because I'm going to go off piste here. And this is so interesting for a woman who has been fearlessly entering worlds where, frankly, people would think and hesitate. Something about deep tech tells you that it's too complex or too scary.
Yeah.
Is that it?
I think so. Maybe it's just like what people say about it. It sounds more
What do they
complex.
say?
Well, a lot of, research and
So it's that depth piece that's
yeah,
intimidating. It
yeah,
seems to be being built by people who have that depth,
exactly.
and you're a person with the breadth. But if I come back to this beautiful statement you made about not the what, but the who,
Yeah.
I'd like to say that the water is warm and you should come in.
Sign me up. Thursday, you got
But coming back, because I want to get an example. I think you mentioned you're not a founder, now you're not a CEO. Fine, I understand that. But I also think I really hear you when you say you're going to know what it takes to take this beyond the pitch and beyond the vision. A founder, they can see the whole road and you've built it brick by brick. So tell me in a meeting, let's take a hypothetical meeting with a founder. What's a question you typically ask that you haven't really heard others ask?
I don't know if this is a common question, but I always love to know what the founder or the founders have learned the past 6 months. If they don't have an answer, they're not learning anything fast enough. Also, things like, what do you see as the biggest risk? It makes you understand whether they know their space or not. And if they can foresee risk in the upcoming 6 months, 12 months, you need to be able to calculate the risks and to understand the problem as a founder. So I think those are the two questions that I tend to look at. But of course, like the cliche answer as well is things that I look at, like the passion, the drive. One thing I actually that makes me not invest in people or in founders and in companies is the fact that if they believe that they already have a great solution they have the answer to everything and they're not keen on learning, that's a red flag to me. Because it's unrealistic that, or if they do, they probably just want your money and they don't want my expertise. And I'm an angel. Like,
That first check,
yeah,
it's only betting on people, and there is so much to build.
exactly. And I also want to come in with my expertise and helping with product if I can. Otherwise, I could have invested in the stock market.
Exactly. You told me that you stepped away from this entire world, which honestly, it's a loss for all the companies, but you're doing something so wonderful. I've had the incredible pleasure and privilege of reading some of your work. As you're putting it, you have this voice. And now, this is not flattering, but genuinely, I read a lot. I'm always curious about the voice, but also the story. Tell me more about this girl who becomes a woman through the pages of your book. What is her journey, and why did you need to tell this?
So this is a book that I started maybe 8 years ago. I remember when my firstborn came and I had my first like course within writing. And then, I don't know, imposter syndrome happened, right? And I paused it. And then a year ago, honestly, I was burnt out. I didn't see it. My mother was sick in cancer and I took care of her. And I was just like trying to find my way. And what is so interesting is that maybe you don't agree. A product world can be very challenging because you work hell of a lot and you rarely get any credit for it. You just get the bashing, right? I'm being like generalistic here, but it's a tough job. You need to be able to take a lot of crap. And I'm a very sensitive person and also like this good girl that is trying to do everything right. So I decided that I was gonna do something for myself. So I continued writing. And at first it was, speaking of AI, like this talk about everyone is writing books with AI. And like I was talking to myself, I was like, how and am I going to be able to write this book now that everyone is writing? And
Interesting.
yeah. So yeah, the story is actually about my mom. It's based on her coming to Stockholm as a young girl alone. It's not completely a self-biography, so there's a lot of fiction in it. But the basics of it is the question about, if you've never been chosen, will you be able to choose yourself in the end? And also, and also, I wanted to shed light on migration because that's a big thing today, especially in Sweden. I am so sure that no one wants to leave their country unless they have to. Like, it feels like people are numbers today in Sweden. Like, you just think that they come here to use the system. And my mom didn't want to come. She had to, she was forced. And so I'm trying to shed light on that. The way she tried to adapt herself and to adopt the culture. And it's also fun because I write a lot about the Swedish typical things that you might not think of. So yeah.
But writing a book is one of the loneliest creative acts there is. What keeps you going when all of this feels impossible?
Good question. I actually like the loneliness of it.
Maybe
You know,
that's the
I'm
secret.
becoming, this lone wolf. I don't know. I'm just so decisive. It's going to be done either way. Like, even if it's not going to be published, I think what drives me is that I've promised to those around me that it's going to be done. It's like going to the gym. Like, if you tell people you're going to do it, it makes it a little bit easier than just keeping it to yourself. And it makes me want to rewrite and show and update people like, yeah, this is what I changed now. And yeah, my husband is so tired of me sending him, here's an update, here's a new version. He's like, yeah,
He's got time. It's fine.
That's-
But this gives me, I think, additional depth. We talked about your investing, and I think it's all of these aspects, you getting under the hood of the real story to be told, the people, what drives them. I want to touch upon sort of your angel investing. That was also a world where you treaded in, and I think you're backing amazing companies like Eastrid and Bimingo and Grail as an angel investor. You mentioned First Check. It's a lot about people. In fact, I think it's 99% about people at that
Yeah.
stage. How do you separate a founder that actually understands their customer from someone who's really good at telling a story about it?
That's a good question. You can never be 100% sure, but with experience, you can really tell by the question you ask whether they know about the space or not. And yeah, as you mentioned, the common denominator among the companies that I back is really because the founders are incredible. Combify was my first with Ala and Dream. And you could just sense the way that they were talking about the problem, that this was a painkiller that they created and not a vitamin. This was like, we need this today, otherwise this space is not going to work. And of course, you need to maybe put some time into understanding it yourself and not just believe what the founder says.
So doing a little bit of your own objective
Yeah.
DD in it as well. But I would argue that your investment in Grail, who do plant or cellulose-based alternatives to plastics, is usually my turf, you know? You said you were afraid of deep tech, but this is a novel application of something that's very science heavy. They're doing great, but it's disrupting the status quo of an industry that is otherwise very well established and as resistant to change as perhaps the insurance. What was different about that evaluation or that team? And what did you have to think about, because they're B2B, what did you have to think about differently when backing them versus the others that have been more consumer oriented?
When it comes to the DD, I actually, how do you say this in English?
Say it in French.
Arabic. I actually piggybacked a bit, is maybe what I should do in those cases. Yeah, I will call you because I didn't know the space, but I met the founders and they are amazing. And yeah, so actually you picked one of those that I didn't really dig into myself as I normally would. But as I try to move in for companies that do well for the world, like impact, I took a leap of faith.
So there's hope for me to bring you over.
For sure.
To
I
the
wanted
very
to invest in your cool deep tech, and now you have a fund.
We're going to make this work. I'm here. What brings you comfort is someone who can complement your breadth with the depth. And to be very frank with you, even if you are a PhD in one scientific topic, the amount of things that the topic deep tech can cover, it's the exact same thing that I do. I reach out to people who actually know this at a deeper level than I do and who I can trust and have credibility to help me demystify the tech piece. So we're not that different in that sense. That's very wonderful to know. You talked about impact on the world and values. You know, we're watching each other's kids grow up. We're talking about building these products. Every day we're reading about how this technology or that technology is going to either save the world or destroy it. And the truth, I think, is somewhere in between. But I think what's really important is, what are the values that you are very deliberate about passing on? And What are some of the values that you're afraid, with the world as it is today, might be at stake?
One of my core values is being kind. Like I often say to the kids, like Bums, that if you're strong, you need to be kind.
The non-Swedish listeners, this is a communist bear.
The best way I can describe this. No, but it's a children's cartoon. It's a communist bear. But yes, he has this like magic potion, and he's very, very strong because of it. But as you say, he's also kind.
Yeah. And we're very fortunate to have been not only fortunate, we've worked hard, but we need to also spread that across the world. I try to always be genuine and kind because everyone is, now I'm just throwing out these cliches everywhere. Like everyone has their problems, but it's true. Like you don't know what people go through. So I try to be kind and understanding. Sometimes it's like a lot on my shoulders because I feel like I want carrying the world on my shoulders. But I feel so terrible when we're not nice to each other, or kind. So yeah, kindness.
And I think the book you're writing, it also asks for, beyond kindness, it asks for empathy.
Yeah.
And I genuinely think we lack that today.
Yeah.
We're so quick to listen to each other to find the points of disagreement. And it is considered an act of treachery or being a traitor if you somehow try to understand the other point of view. You don't have to agree with it, but apparently empathy is now about, not choosing a side. It's a very tricky world to navigate, and those are very simple values. They feel soft and fluffy, but they're not because they're just so incredibly difficult to execute and live.
I've always had a hard time drawing the line between, like, especially in my work as a product manager, like, when am I being too kind and when are people taking it as soft or too much of their friend, or, I'm their boss, but I'm actually never the tech team's boss. I'm their informal boss, but I have to be their friend and be their safe space. I've battled a lot with conflicts, being too nice. But in the end, it's just like, I'm going to be me. Yeah. That's growing old.
Who's growing old?
I don't give a fudge anymore. I'm just going to be me.
One last question. So with everything that we've talked about and everything you've become, what would you tell Nora in the beginning, in the first chapter, when she's still little, before everything, if you could?
You mean the main character?
Yeah.
I would tell her that no matter what you're born with or not born with, you have the strength within to change what you want to change. My mom was the perfect example of that. She came with nothing, 16 years old, and she turned out to be the best human ever. So kind, so empathetic, and built a great family and great values. Yeah, she's the perfect example of that.
I can't think of a better note to end on. Thank you for making this one of the best Thursdays in a very long time.
Thank you, Mala.
That's it for today. Thank you for listening. I hope you found this as inspirational and new as I did. You can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts, and I'll see you next week on Thursday VC. Now go exercise your free will and do something outrageous.
Climbing a tree, twisted like a snake and busy like bees. Don't know what the